HSBC just bought Silicon Valley Bank for £1, the price of a 5-pack of Freddo chocolates. Hundreds of British startups have been saved. Many thank the bank for taking the risk to buy Silicon Valley Bank. Now let's rewind a little to see how we all got here. To understand why HSBC bought the UK bank for £1, we must take a flight to America. Silicon Valley Bank was the second largest banking failure in the United States. Almost overnight, the bank collapsed without any warning. It happened so quickly. Many depositors who had money in the bank were caught off guard. Silicon Valley Bank's collapse was unexpected. It was the bank that held money for many startups and VC funds. Even established companies in the US like Roku, Roblox, and Etsy used the bank to store their money. Billionaire Peter Thiel, an early investor in Facebook, kept the money from his VC firm, Founders Fund, in Silicon Valley Bank. When Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, many panicked as they were unable to get their money out. Paychecks for millions of people couldn't be processed because some large payroll companies chose to use Silicon Valley Bank for their banking transactions. It was hell on earth. You may be wondering, what does any of this have anything to do with HSBC or the UK? Well, Silicon Valley Bank is a very large bank with over $200 billion of assets. Naturally, they owned bank branches in the UK. Many UK startups and established companies stashed millions of pounds in Silicon Valley Bank's UK branches thanks to their reputation as a startup-friendly bank. As a result, when Silicon Valley Bank went under, many large UK companies lost access to a big portion of their money. Silicon Valley Bank's problems basically spread to the UK. This was a massive problem. Silicon Valley Bank was a critical lender for many tech companies in the UK. Overnight, the bank's niche clientele of startup founders and VC funds lost access to their cash. It was a living nightmare. Hundreds of UK startups couldn't access money that they stashed in Silicon Valley Bank. Apparently, over 140 tech companies had predicted this outcome and sent a letter to the British government warning that the Silicon Valley Bank, if it collapsed, could harm the tech sector, especially if left unchecked. Some names listed on the letter included Stripe, Zoom, Coursera, that place where you get tickets to festivals and events, Eventbrite, GoPro, Fitbit, Dropbox, and Uber. Unfortunately, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed too quickly. There was nothing UK authorities could do. When news of Silicon Valley Bank's collapse hit, the Bank of England, UK regulators basically, were planning to rush Silicon Valley's UK branch through insolvency procedures. This way, UK regulators could give UK customers and startups their money back. The problem was, depositors would only get up to a maximum of £85,000 back. If a startup has millions of pounds stashed in Silicon Valley Bank, then they would lose millions of pounds. £1 million minus £85,000 is still roughly £1 million. British Chancellor Jeremy Hunt was working with the Prime Minister and the Governor of the Bank of England to find a solution throughout the weekend. UK regulators promised to come up with a plan within days. They had better. Without Silicon Valley Bank UK, at least 200 firms employing tens of thousands of people won't be able to pay their staff or suppliers. Almost 40% of UK startups employing up to 50,000 people would be affected by the collapse. UK regulators started the bidding process for buyers who wanted to take over the struggling Silicon Valley Bank branches in the UK. The British government approached some notable UK banks, offering to give Barclays and Lloyds an emergency takeover deal for Silicon Valley Bank branches in the UK. Even the Rothschilds were brought in to advise on the sale. Then Europe's biggest bank, HSBC, one of the leading banks in the UK, dropped the bombshell announcement they wanted to buy Silicon Valley Bank. The Bank of England breathed a sigh of relief when it found out HSBC decided to buy Silicon Valley Bank. It was like a light at the end of the tunnel, so everyone rushed to the exit. British regulators worked their ass off overnight to facilitate the sale of Silicon Valley Bank in the UK. UK regulators deliberately gave HSBC an exemption so it didn't have to deal with some pesky banking regulations that prevented ring-fenced banks like them from banking certain complicated corporate customers.
A sale has been agreed to HSBC, which is Europe's biggest bank. Companies that had deposits with Silicon Valley Bank UK can access their deposits, can access normal banking services as of this morning.
HSBC ended up buying Silicon Valley Bank's UK branches for a stunning £1, the cost of a 5-pack Freddo. Yum. With Silicon Valley Bank's buyout, none of the UK taxpayers will have to foot the bill of a bailout. HSBC is a larger bank based in the UK. They bought out the business for a ceremonial £1 and proceeded to add £2 billion into the UK's Silicon Valley Bank. This helped solve Silicon Valley Bank's UK liquidity problem. The CEO of HSBC promised tech investors that he would continue adding billions of pounds more into the troubled bank to keep it from collapsing. The Bank of England and the UK Treasury confirmed all the depositors' money with Silicon Valley Bank's UK subsidiary was safe and secure under HSBC. UK tech companies could withdraw their money and use Silicon Valley Bank's services as usual. Thank heavens. Many tech companies thanked HSBC for their efforts. The CEO of Lingumi was especially grateful. His education startup kept 85% of their money in Silicon Valley Bank.
Delighted, I think I speak on behalf of UK startups when we say this is a huge relief, and we can look our teams in the eye at 9 o'clock in our all-hands calls, which were going to be pretty nerve-wracking this morning, and say not only will we be able to make next payroll, but we can continue business as usual, continue innovating, doing our research and development, and building the future, hopefully, of UK technology growth.
Honestly, British startups never needed to worry about the bank's collapse. After Silicon Valley Bank's parent company announced its collapse, many private firms submitted a formal proposal to the UK Treasury to buy those bank branches in the UK. A British digital bank called Oak North Bank was planning to buy Silicon Valley Bank in the UK, and they weren't alone. Royalty from oil-rich nations, specifically the UAE, tried to buy the troubled bank as well. Royal Group, owned by Abu Dhabi Royals and led by Sheikh Tahnoon, was keen on buying Silicon Valley Bank in the UK. In fact, a consortium of investors led by the Bank of London also submitted a formal bid to the UK Treasury to buy Silicon Valley Bank. It's not hard to see why everyone wanted Silicon Valley Bank branches in the UK. The bank is quite profitable and has clients from the UK tech industry. HSBC managed to get a sweet deal with Silicon Valley Bank. The troubled bank had £6.7 billion of deposits and $5.5 billion in loans. Last year, Silicon Valley Bank in the UK made £88 million of profit. It was a good deal for HSBC, especially when you consider the liabilities of SVB's UK parent company were excluded from the transaction. So far, the British banking sector's nightmare has ended. UK banking share prices may have fallen across the board, but these problems were created through reactionary decisions and will reverse their course in the long term. HSBC is happy with their new bank. Their CEO Noel Quinn stated the new acquisition would enhance their ability to serve innovative and fast-growing firms in the UK and internationally. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe.